everybody. It's the Zen Witch. I found myself this morning having some thoughts in the shower, which is a place where I have a lot of thoughts. So I thought I would jump on here and share them with you. I don't even know exactly where they're going, but we'll find out. And here I am with my wet hair, and I know you're sitting there probably in your jammies. It is, no, yesterday was No Pants Tuesday. Is it Wednesday? Is it Tuesday? I think it's Wednesday. My relationship with the clock and the calendar has deteriorated severely. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But here are the thoughts that I was having. I'm thinking about this Saturn's transit into Aquarius and the paradigm shift that that brings about around how we do business and the structure of how we go about our business. And um, the foundation of that structure, we need to get to the bedrock here. And this COVID-19 situation is taking us down to the bedrock. We're discovering daily what really matters and what doesn't. But there's something underpinning all this that I want to call to your attention. And it came to me in the shower because as I was putting shampoo into my hand and soap on my rag, and I was thinking about our culture that seems to swing between abundance and scarcity. Abundance and scarcity. And when I'm doing readings, I talk about these two words a lot. There are cards that denote a scarcity mindset. Five of Pentacles is one of them. Four of Pentacles is one. And then there are cards that talk about abundance, like the and 10 of Pentacles and the Empress. And but there's something. So scarcity means not enough, right? We don't have enough. Abundance means more than enough or plenty. And so we go between these things. I don't have enough and I need to get enough. And also underpinning this, the scarcity isn't just about material things. It's about who I am. And this scarcity mindset is frequently rooted in the concept of me not being enough. I don't have enough. I am not enough. And so we go to the external acquisition of things in order to fill this sense of lack, this sense of not being or having enough. And, what do we look for? We look for abundance. I want more than enough. Our security, we think about having retirement and money put away. So there's, way more than what we need in this moment, but we have to have that way more than enough for the future, for what happens in the future when I'm no longer earning an income or when my income will not be enough. So what I want to point out is between scarcity and abundance, between these two extremes, there is that place that I've mentioned this word several times already, the place of enough, the place of sufficiency. And what I found out in the shower is that, true conservatism is creeping in, and true conservatism is about enough. So, for instance, when I'm used to, pouring this big thing of shampoo in my hand, or thinking about, several years ago, when I would be in the shower, and I use Neutrogena rain bath, and I use it for one reason, and that's because of the smell, because it's what I used at a really wonderful, happy, awakening time of my life, and that smell brings it back to me, and it's important. It makes my brain go in a certain place. And a few years ago, I would get in the shower and I would take my rain bath and my cloth and I would do 3 pumps, boom, 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 and, lots of suds and everything. Then I started backing up and it's like 2 pumps is fine. And then I'm getting to no, 1 pump is fine. And I am discovering now that a half a pump of rain bath is enough. It is sufficient to wash my entire body. So, and then shampoo, just this little bit is sufficient and enough to wash my long hair. Where before it would just be, I would put more than enough in my hand because there's always more. We can always get more. Well, when we are faced with, and sorry, I'm twisting my hair. This is what I do when it's wet. I twist it like this so that the ends curl. And it's also, a self-calming thing. So you're going to see me twisting my hair a lot. So when we're faced with enforced lack, when we are faced with, um, supply lines drying up and grocery shelves going empty and the inability to go out whenever we need something, we are confronted with um, stretching the resources that we do have. We are confronted with having to identify what true conservatism looks like to us. How do we conserve our resources? How do we conserve money? How do we not use too much water? How do we conserve power? Our power went out yesterday. Yikes. It was like right around dinner time. I was in the middle of producing the video on making masks, and suddenly our power went out, and it came up and it went out, and it came up and went out. It came up and went out, and a little while later it came up for just several seconds and then it went out again, which means that it's like, which can mean that it is going through switching stations and those are failing in sequence. It's exactly what happened when I caused the blackout back in, I don't remember the year, and yes, I caused that blackout. Side story, I was going in to dry my hair. It was hot, so I had the air conditioner on in the bedroom. And I came into the bedroom to dry my hair, and I forgot to shut the air conditioner off first. And so I was drying my hair. The power went down. I hollered down to Cliff to hit the breaker. He hit the breaker. It came up, it went down, it came up, it went down, it came up, and went down and stayed down. The next thing was a call from my niece in Detroit on our landline, which we had then, saying, do you guys have power? And my brain just went, because what the hell, she's calling me from Detroit and asking if we have power. And she was calling because her brother in New York City, in Brooklyn, called her to see if they had power, and that's when the full impact of holy shit, we're in trouble hit. So I had that moment yesterday when the power went up and down and up and down, and then I went into a full blown anxiety attack, borderline panic attack. I staved that off, but it was just like, holy shit, now what do we do? It's one thing if you can go out and go to somebody else's house when your power is out, or, transfer our food to somebody's freezer or something. But when you're in lockdown and you can't do that, what happens if our power really is out? And I mean, we were talking about, we do have a camp stove with some white gas. We haven't used it like in decades. And so that would be a frightening thing. We do have a fire pit outside. We were talking about what pans and things, how we could set things up to use the fire to cook food. I mean, it just really went into a place. And then an hour and a half later, our power came back. Glory, hallelujah. But again, just to get pitched into that place of thinking low to the ground, thinking about the bedrock level. How do we really survive? What do we really need? So I want to get you thinking about the concept of enough. And with Saturn transiting into Aquarius, Uranus comes, Saturn comes under the rulership of Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius. Uranus is currently sitting in Taurus, which deals with resources, values, what we have to use. It's all the material things. It's money. It's anything material and anything you can put your hand to. It's our resources for basic survival. It's food. It's I'm sorry, still getting over this one. So what we're really called to in this paradigm shift of Saturn into Aquarius, which is going to update the structure of how we do everything, and golly, aren't we there? We're in it. So it needs to be values driven, and the big shift needs to happen around our values and our concept of sufficiency and enough. And of course, that starts with our concept of whether or not I am enough. Am I sufficient? So I'm watching, it's really interesting watching how people are reacting to these things. And there are certain people who are very much control oriented and very used to being in control and having their way. These are the people that are struggling the hardest right now. Laura Ingraham from Fox put out a total Karen tweet about, the people need to know right now when the date that this is going to be over with. This what did she say? This uncertainty about it is unsustainable. So she wants somebody to come up with a date and tell her exactly when this is all going to be over with and we're all going to be okay. And I laughed my ass off because it's like there is a person that's used to being in control. There is a person that is used to having things her way. She has not ever grappled with uncertainty. And so these people, these hoarders, money hoarders, these billionaires, are the ones, I mean, they're not going to suffer too much because they're sitting on mountains and mountains and mountains of cash that's going to, see them through whatever they think is going to see them through whatever. Um, but what we're confronted with here, with this uncertainty, is you get confronted with your basic paradigm, your basic belief system. Do you believe in enough? Do you believe in sufficiency? Do you believe in the goodness of people? Do you believe, what do you believe? That's what we're confronted with when we're faced with uncertainty. And I will tell you here that this is an excellent, excellent time to get books by or watch videos by or listen to podcasts by. I don't even know if she has a podcast, but Pema Chodron, Tibetan teacher, Tibetan monk, the runner of Gampo Abbey, except she stepped away from Gampo Abbey recently because of things that were going on there. They're working to a solution. But anyway, Pema Chodron, there are two books in particular. When Things Fall Apart is number one. The Places That Scare You is number two. And it is all about Tibetan practice insofar as it deals with the reality of no control. The control is an illusion. So all these people that are freaking out so bad, and Laura Ingraham wanting a date, she's being confronted with the reality of no control. And the truth of it is, we think we have security. We think we have control. It's an illusion. At any moment, it can get ripped away from us. Our illusions can get ripped away from us, and they can send us scrambling and just clawing for any semblance of control, and they can make us freak out. So if you're freaking out, it's a signal to sit down and look at your mind and look at what illusion is being torn away. So Aquarius is the awakener. Uranus is actually the planet Uranus is the awakener, but it's the ruler of Aquarius. So what we're waking up to now is the faults in the structure and the fallacy of this illusion of control. Saturn is control. And I said in my other video about Saturn into Aquarius, this is the Tower card that we're living here. And the way I interpret the Tower card, I call it the divorce card because in a personal reading, it very frequently denotes the breakdown of a long-standing relationship. It always denotes the breakdown of a long-standing structure. And what it says to me is this structure has calcified. This structure has moved from a living, breathing, functioning structure into dogma, into it's the way it is because it's set in stone and we don't question it. And the reason the tower is breaking down is because it's outgrown. The reason that things are rocking and rolling is because you've outgrown the structure of where you've been living. And it's time to bust out of that so that you can grow beyond. You can grow beyond it. An example here is if you have kids, you've lived this. You have your baby, and you know the freak out of dealing with a new baby. And when you finally get things dialed in and into a routine, and it's like things are going along well, and then all of a sudden everything starts not going so well. Things start breaking apart and falling apart and breaking down. And you think, what the hell is happening? And I mean, this happens so many stages along the way. It happens rapidly when they're very young. But, you deal with a 1.5-year-old, and then suddenly they're 2, and then that 2 evolves into 3. But you go through these phases of getting things dialed in and getting the structure set up and getting your process set up and everything's running smoothly. Suddenly it's not. Hold on. Bleh. Had a hair in my mouth. So suddenly it's not working smoothly. Suddenly everything starts breaking down. And you start thinking, what am I doing wrong? Well, what's happening is you are still parenting for this phase the kid was in, and the kid has moved on to another phase. So that old structure needs to break down because the child has outgrown it. And as an adult, you're not used to growing through phases the way these kids are. You know, they're constantly updating and changing. As we get into to adulthood, we start looking to what we can make stay, what can stay the same rather than continually evolving. So your kid really forces you to go through personal evolution and forces you to update the way you do things. And of course, that starts with recognizing that things need to be updated. So, what we're being confronted with now is the fact that everything needs to be updated, that this old calcified way of being does not serve the majority. It serves the very, very, very few. And that's not good enough. That's not enough. So, the people at the top are going to have a very difficult time, and I would probably say impossible time, adjusting their thinking to enough because they are so firmly rooted in more than enough. I mean, if they had to strip down and live with just enough, I'd like to see what would happen. And I would like to observe the changes that they go through. Um, when you look at people like us that live at ground level to begin with, we live very low to the ground. We could not sustain a $400 emergency. And yes, I'm touching my face, folks. I haven't been out of my house in a week. Um, so people like us are used to dealing with just enough and sufficiency and even lack. But for us, with people that are used to thinking of lack and not enough, I have found that our monthly budget really was enough to feed us through the month. We had to go to survival food rather than our usual keto diet. But, and, you know, the money ran out like a solid week ago, and we've got a week to get through. But I know in that week we have a full tank. We have all the groceries we need to go beyond that week. So what we get a month really is enough to keep body and soul together, to keep our bills paid, to keep us fed, but not beyond that. So I invite you now to spend some time just thinking about the concept of sufficiency and enough, starting with, am I enough? And a question you might ask on the tail of that is compared to what? Because there is no absolute value here. It's all relative. So, am I enough compared to what? And then check who you're comparing yourself with. And then when you go to your resources, is it enough? Check who you're comparing yourself with or what you're comparing yourself with, because that's all we can do. There's no absolute here. I mean, I guess there could be somewhat of an absolute in that, you know, shelter, food, and water and access to, you know, medicine is kind of an absolute. So I guess, yeah, so this can help us boil things down to what are the absolutes? What does every human being deserve just by living and breathing on this planet? Just because, you know, we got invited here, none of us, well, I mean, this could be argued spiritually, but really, if we look at it just bald-faced, none of us really chose to come. You know, we got invited here. Once we arrive here, what is it that we have a basic right to? And so I'm going to leave it hanging there so you can just do some thinking about the concept of enough. Put some comments down below about, you know, what you've discovered about conservatism. If you've been on lockdown or if supplies have been short, what have you discovered that has opened your eyes to, gosh, this really, I can get away with just this instead of this? How are you paring back your lifestyle to fit more comfortably within your resources and your means? I'd like to know how you're doing. Are you okay? Are you well? Where do you live? What are the circumstances there? Let's have a little dialogue in the comments. Of course, like and subscribe, and look forward to Oracle Friday. And I really am going to get together a meditation video here soon, but I'm sewing. I'm doing a lot of sewing. I have to limit the sewing because it really hurts my neck a lot. So I will do a couple hours of that and then possibly drop a meditation on you for tough times. Okay. Good to know I can connect with you here. Please take care. Please be safe and please be well. This is the Zen Witch. Blessed be.